Hello, it's lovely to be back with you once again. I hope you're enjoying this fine weather that we've got and managing to stay cool. Last weekend, Pete and I were driving the minibus back from Morpha Bay where we have our summer camp. The minibus was hot, it was full of campers, and we were just desperate to get home. We were tired, but when we got near Birmingham, we got caught in all the traffic. Now, fortunately, we knew that it was the Commonwealth Games and that we might get caught in traffic, and it wasn't too bad at the end of the day. I don't know how much you know about the Commonwealth Games. I, for example, didn't know it was called the Friendly Games. I like that name. I thought we could have a little bit of fun this morning. I've got some trivia questions, just a few, so you can see how much you know about the games. Okay, here's the first question. How many teams competed this year in 2022? Do you know the answer? Well, here is the answer. There were 72 teams and they competed from 56 nations. Now that might sound a little bit strange, but some teams compete under their own flags. The next question. When did the games start? Well, they started in 1930 and they happen every 4 years. And the only 2 years that they didn't happen was 1942 and 1946. Okay, next question. The Commonwealth Games is a multi-sport event. Do you know how many sports were in this year's games? I'll give you a minute or two to think. And here's the answer. 19 different sports this year, everything from beach volleyball to lawn bowls and all those sports in between. Here's our final question. Do you know which sports have been in every game since 1930? What could they be? Well, there's only 3 sports that have been in every games. They are boxing, athletics, and swimming. So how did you do? Did you get 4 out of 4, 2 out of 4? We'll never know. It was just a little bit of fun to start us off today. Well, as I said, we were travelling back from summer camp and the whole games had virtually passed by. We never heard really about them. We were so busy having fun. So when I got home, I was unpacking the minibus and doing the laundry and all those things. And the television was on in the living room. And every once in a while, I'd stick my head in. And one race in particular caught my attention, and it was the women's 1500 metres. And I like to support Scotland. I sometimes feel that we're a bit of an underdog, and quite often we're disappointed because we don't do well. But in this race, it was just gripping. Laura Muir went out ahead in front, and I was thinking, oh no, you've gone too soon, you'll never be able to hold on. But she did, and it was wonderful, it was exciting. She won, and everybody was very excited, especially in Scotland. So she got her gold medal. Now, I don't want to blow Scotland's horn. I know that England did really well, and that they actually had, at the end of the games, 176 medals. Wow! 57 of them were gold. And I don't want to leave Northern Ireland out. I heard that you did really well in the boxing, winning 5 gold medals. So I think we all did okay. Not as well as the leaders, Australia, of course. They had 178 medals. But it's just a bit of fun. As the title says, it's the Friendly Games. Now, with this all going on, when I was reading the lectionary scriptures this week, it will come as no surprise. The one in Hebrews, when it talked about the race, jumped out at me. That struck a deep chord. The writer of Hebrews uses the metaphor of running a race, and he compares it to our Christian journey and our life of faith. If you like, it's a race of faith. And at the end of Hebrews 11, we're encouraged to finish the race and receive the prize. And in Hebrews 12, verse 1, we're told, let us run with endurance the race God has set before us. Now, run with endurance implies that the race we're running is not a sprint. You know, a sprint when it's over and done with in a flash. No, the race that's been talked about is more like a marathon. Now, some of you might be saying, oh, I'm too old, I could never run, let alone run a marathon. You might be interested to know that the oldest person to complete a marathon, and it wasn't just one marathon, it was quite a few marathons, was a gentleman by the name of, and I apologise for crucifying his name, Funja Singh. And he was 101 years old. So you see, it's never too late. Now, you're sitting there thinking, well, I'm not anything like him, and I'm sitting there thinking the same thing too. But we can be encouraged by the fact that in this spiritual race of faith, physical ability and age are not any factors at all. Now, with all good analogies, there are similarities and differences. And I thought just now it might be wise to take a few minutes to look at some of the differences between physical races, between the races that we saw at the Commonwealth Games and this spiritual race of faith that Hebrews is talking about. All good athletes believe that they will win the race. That's a deep faith that they have. They have faith in their coaches, in the training programs that they've done. They have faith in their own bodies and its strength and abilities. But we don't, as Christians in this race of faith, have faith in ourselves. We don't have faith in our bodies. We have faith in God and what He promises to do. And even the faith, that little faith that we have, is a gift from God. He gives it through grace. And in our race, we focus on Him. I like this phrase. The less of us means there will be more of God. And that's always a good thing. And in this race, the less of us, the better. Another difference is that sometimes perhaps we can sit in the comfort of our living rooms and we watch the excitement, and the end of the race is so exciting, and we jump on our feet and our heart pounds as if we were there. But you know, we forget too often the blood, the sweat and the tears that goes into winning that race. And we can have this misconception that for these athletes, that their giftedness is the reason that they win the race. And it's true, they need to be gifted. We're not all fast runners or can throw the javelin or jump high or long. But behind all of that giftedness, these athletes have to work hard. And many of them work hard their whole life and never win the race. This Christian life that we are living is no exception. It is difficult. It involves hard work. We're warned in the pages of the Bible, and sometimes we can underestimate just how hard it is, but we're warned it's going to be difficult. You know, I don't know about you, but I can do hard things sometimes, maybe even harder than I thought I could, when I'm warned beforehand that it is going to be difficult. You see, when you're told it's going to be difficult, our expectations are managed. When we're told it's going to be easy and then it turns out to be hard, that's when we struggle. So it's good when our expectations match the reality that we're facing. So as I said, the Bible tells us that the spiritual life is going to be hard. The athletes are told it's going to be hard to win any medals. In fact, Jesus Christ Himself in Luke chapter 12 verse 50 says, I have a terrible baptism of suffering ahead of me, and I'm under a heavy burden until it's accomplished. So Jesus Himself knew that it was going to be difficult. He was mentally prepared for that difficulty. As I said earlier, there are similarities in running the physical race and our spiritual race of faith. But let's look at another difference. And I've touched upon it already. A huge difference is that we all have an opportunity to cross the finishing line and win the race, unlike the athletes in the Commonwealth Games. There's only one winner. And you know, the fact that we can all win, we can all encourage each other, and we're all running together, that's of great encouragement. We can all be winners. We all get the prize if we keep on going. Now, in the time that I've got left today, I'd like to look at the lessons that we can learn, draw in on the lessons that successful athletes today have followed. And we can see if there's anything that can help us that we can apply to our own spiritual race and this life of faith. I'm going to blow Scotland's trumpet one more time, I apologise. But Ailey McColgan, when she won the 10,000 metres race, what did she do when she finished? Obviously, she was exhausted, she was elated, but she eventually looked for her family in the crowd. And in particular, she ran to her mother. Now, you might think, well, that's a natural reaction. But what some of you might not know, and I personally didn't know this till I read about it, she ran to her mother, and her mother was also a gold medal winner for Scotland in the very same 10,000 metre race. So her mother had won the race twice, in 1986, and in 1990. So you see there was a family connection there and a history which I believe helped her to win. You know, I know that Ailey probably inherited her family's running genes, and that made a difference. But mentally, her mother's help, her support, made a difference. You know, her mother had gone before her, and she was able to share with her what it was like and to give her pointers on what she had to do to win, so she could learn from her mother. And this brings me to my first point. Successful athletes study and learn from those who've gone before them and who have succeeded. And this is what the author of Hebrews reminds us to do. In chapter 11, I won't read all of it today, but take the time and go back and think about the stories. They're stories of people who've gone ahead of us. They're wonderful, inspiring examples of people who've succeeded. And they're part of our Christian family, the family of God, and we can learn from them. The Bible tells us in Hebrews 11, remember those who crossed over the Red Sea. Remember Rahab, who welcomed the scouts. Remember those who marched around Jericho. Remember Samson and Daniel, who shut the mouths of lions. Remember those who won strength out of weakness, like Gideon and Esther. Remember those who were tortured, mocked, scourged, and tormented. Why should we read about them in the pages of the Bible? Because in looking, we learn who we are. We learn that we're not alone, that we're part of a big family, a family of God, and the traits and characteristics that they had, we have as new creatures made in the image of Jesus Christ. We're all on this journey together, and we all have similarities. You know, as we look at this remarkable family that the writer of Hebrews sketches, we discover two distinct portraits of faith. One portrait is full of images of triumph, conquering enemies, obtaining promises, shutting the mouths of lions, even gaining victory over death. Let's take a minute to look at those. Turn to Hebrews chapter 11, verses 33 to 35. So that's Hebrews chapter 11, verses 33 to 35. How much more do I need to say? It would take too long to recount the stories of faith of Gideon, Barak, Samson, Jehoshaphat, David, Samuel, and all the prophets. By faith these people overthrew kingdoms, ruled with justice, and received what God had promised them. They shut the mouths of lions, quenched the flames of fire, and escaped death by the edge of the sword. Their weakness was turned to strength. They became strong in battle and put whole armies to flight. Women received their loved ones back from death. That's an exciting portrait, and that's one that we are encouraged by reading. The next one is a little bit harder to read. The other portrait is filled with images of suffering, public mocking, imprisonment, beating, stoning, of homelessness, violence, and even death. Let's take a look at that now in Hebrews 11, reading from chapter 35 to 38. But others were tortured, refusing to turn from God in order to be set free. They placed their hope in a better life after the resurrection. Some were jeered at, and their backs were cut open with whips. Others were chained in prisons. Some died by stoning. Some were sawn in half, and others were killed with the sword. Some went about wearing skins of sheep and goats, destitute and oppressed and mistreated. They were too good for this world, wandering over deserts and mountains, hiding in caves and holes in the ground. It's quite sobering when you read that. These are members of our family who lived in the past, and these are things that they've gone through, and in this world today there are people who are going through these things now, destitute, being jeered, having no home. From the outside, these pictures and images, these portraits, are radically different, and they're impossible to reconcile. After all, our culture says that we're either successful or we're a failure. But the writer of Hebrews mixes the categories, because our lot in life is not a measure of our faithfulness or of how well we're running the race. So what happened to us is not the measure. By intermingling the categories, we're encouraged. We're encouraged about the struggles of being Christian. When you think about it, if we're struggling and someone tells us that the true mark of faithfulness is suffering, we might get despondent. We might despair more. We're thinking, is the rest of my life going to be like this? Am I going to have to suffer forever? That would be a discouragement. And then on the other hand, if we're struggling and someone tells us that the true mark of faithfulness is triumph and victory, we'll be thinking, well, what hope is there for us? What am I doing wrong? Why am I not experiencing those things? But by cleverly mixing the suffering and the triumph, it gives us hope. Faithfulness shines both in suffering and in triumph. We know from personal experience that faithfulness shines both in sorrow and in joy, and that's life. We have periods of suffering, we have periods of great victory, and so we learn through these experiences that our faith endures. Faith trusts God's promises even when the present calls those promises into question. In the face of suffering, faith holds on and holds out because of the certainty of a future in which God has something better in store for us, for all of us. We think during those times, those experiences, about our Christian family, and we remember we're not alone. We have a race to run, and we rededicate ourselves. When you think about it, we're not mere tourists in this world, wandering from place to place, taking pictures, visiting landmarks, writing postcards, and then cheerfully returning to the safety of our homes. We're runners in a race, not the 50-yard dash, but in this marathon. This leads me to my second point. Successful athletes are disciplined. They work hard. They get up early when many people are still asleep. They put in the hours after many have finished work for the day and are relaxing. They don't take time off, especially not when it comes to near to the race. Every single day counts. And we, like them, cannot take time off from being a Christian. We are Christian. We're running this race. We have to be disciplined. We have to seek God's will in our life constantly. We can't take a day off and decide, you know what, I'm not going to think about God today. I don't want to be a Christian today. I just want to do my own thing. No, we have to be disciplined. We have to keep going. We get on our knees every day. It's important to pray, to study, to meditate, to think about God. They say that running a race is 90% mental and 10% physical. Think about it, 90% mental and 10% physical. Now, I would like to suggest, if we keep those same ratios, that running this spiritual race, perhaps we could say that 90% is Jesus and 10% is us. We have to show up, we have to put effort in, but Jesus is the source of our strength, and we focus on him. He's the 90%. Yes, we come to the race, we work hard, but Jesus Christ is the only one who's finished the race. He's the only one who's got the prize, and we look to him, and it's in him that we race across the finishing line. The third point, successful athletes are focused on the prize and nothing else. As runners, we must lay aside every hindrance, even our ordinary clothes, for the purpose of the contest. When you think about it, when you watch the runners running in the race, they wear a minimum of clothing. Everything is very minimalistic, very light, and they carry nothing with them. There's no other baggage that they take. So in Hebrews, we're called to lay aside everything, every sin that could trip us up, everything that weighs us down, and we summon our dedication, and we focus, and we pay the price, and we keep on running. Now, as I said before, Jesus Christ is the only one who's received the prize. And, it's great when you read the Bible over and over and you think you've learned things, but there's always something new to learn. And this hadn't really struck me before. But when I was reading Hebrews, I was interested to note that those who came before us, all the heroes in the faith chapter, had not yet received their prize. Let's take a look at it. Hebrews 11, verse 39 to 40. And I'm reading this one. All the other scriptures I've been reading out of the New Living Translation, but I liked this version of the NIV. These were all commended for their faith, yet none of them received what had been promised, since God had planned something better for us, so that only together with us would they be made perfect. Only together with us. So you see, no one's getting the prize until we all get it together. The fourth point, successful athletes visualize. They visualize winning the race. They mentally put themselves in that race and they see themselves crossing the finishing line. And the author of Hebrews does this for us. Now let's go back to Hebrews 12, verse 1. And I'm back looking at the New Living Translation here. Therefore, since we are surrounded by such a huge crowd of witnesses to the life of faith, let us strip off every weight that slows us down, especially the sin that so easily trips us up, and let us run with endurance the race God has set before us. Now, as I said, I like reading the New Living Translations to get the overall meaning, but when you're digging deeper into the meaning of words, it's good to read different translations. And the New International Version says this, the great cloud of witnesses. So it uses this word cloud. And the reason this is important is because the Greek word translated here as cloud is nephos, which is, in classical Greek times, it was used to depict the highest seats in the bleachers of a sports stadium. Now you can imagine a huge crowd of witnesses, for example, in the Alexander Stadium in Perry Park in Birmingham for the Commonwealth Games. It has a capacity to hold 32,000 people. 32,000 people, that's a huge crowd. But this word cloud then paints the picture of a huge stadium, such as, the Alexander Stadium, or maybe even bigger. Going back to Eilish McCollocan when she won the 10,000 metres, and she won it in an incredible time, 30 minutes and 48.60 seconds. The crowd went wild. They were cheering her on. It would have been great to have been there, wasn't it? But when I was reading about her winning this race, she said this, My family were here. The crowd on the last 100 meters. Well, it was vibrating through my whole body. Without the crowd, I wouldn't have finished that. But she wanted it so badly. I wanted it so badly. But she acknowledged that her family, her supporters needed to be there. And the crowd, that noise vibrated through her whole body. And that's what spurred her on. That's where she got the extra energy from. Now, I want us to be like these successful athletes. Put yourself in her shoes. The stadium is filled with a huge crowd or cloud of witnesses. And they're not cheering her on, they're cheering you. They're shouting your name, they're stamping their feet and roaring at the tops of their voices. And in the crowd, they're the likes of Rahab, Samson, Abraham, David, all those mentioned in Hebrews chapter 11, and many, many more. You know, I'd never thought about this, but it was my husband who talked about this. And he did a devotional on it, and he did a word of life. And he said, you know, in the crowd, they're all the people that you and I know, the people that we've loved. They've been on this journey ahead of us and sadly are no longer with us, but they're there. Your family, those that you love, and they're saying to you, you can make it, keep on going. And the noise is so loud, you actually feel it vibrating through your whole body. Keep that picture in your head, and in times of struggle, visualize that. Put yourself in the scene and make it real. It's just a tool that successful athletes use, and we can use this tool in our daily life when we get down. We need to fill our minds with positive things, and that encourages us and helps us to keep on going. But you know, sometimes in life, that's not enough. What do we do when we just can't make it? When we truly believe it's too hard? Despite the cloud or crowd of witnesses, despite all the cheering, despite all the sacrifice, we just are scared that maybe we can't hold on to the end. Well, now let's look at the biggest difference between the physical races that I've been talking about and this spiritual race that we're running, this race of faith. The writer of Hebrews has one final word of advice, the final and perhaps the most important one of all. Let's read about it. Let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us, fixing our eyes on Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of faith. For the joy set before him, he endured the cross, scorning its shame, and sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. His advice is fix your eyes on Jesus. Why? Because he's the pioneer. He's the perfecter of our faith. Let's take a look at that word pioneer. It's translated from Greek, and it's a particularly rich word. It's full of meaning. And the word is archeos or archeos. So the archeos is the author, the beginner, the instigator, the impetus, the trailblazer, if you like, who's gone before us. Jesus is that scout, blazing the trail through all of human existence. And he was tested in every way, like all of us, yet finding joy at the end of the suffering of the cross. He had joy because he knew why he was doing it, and he knew he could finish it. You know, there's even more. In the context of a race, the archeos or argeos is the team captain. In the Greek games, the team captain would run the race and then wait at the finishing line to encourage the teammates who were following along behind. He's there yelling them on. So Jesus is not simply the pioneer, he's also the perfecter. Jesus not only calls us across the finishing line, but he also fills in and fills out what we're lacking in our faithfulness. He takes our incomplete faith and he makes it whole. So when our knees are weak and our hands drooping, and when we feel just worn out by this journey of faith, wondering if we can hold on and can we hold out, we can hear again his clarion call. We can read again from Hebrews, and we remember our family. Remember this contest. But above all, we remember our captain who's run this race and who's cheering us home. I hope you found this encouraging as I did. I loved watching all the competition in the Commonwealth Games. I found it inspiring, and when you read Hebrews and chapter 11 and verse 12, it just makes it all come alive. But I'd like to finish up today with the words of one of my favourite hymns. When I sing this song, I have a connection, I feel a connection to all the people of faith who've gone before me, those in Hebrews 11, and also connected to the future, the people that are coming after us. And I like to think of us all being one family. And when we sing it, we know that we're the children of the living God, and we look forward to the celebrations in the future of when we cross that finishing line. And as great as the closing ceremonies were at the Commonwealth Games in Birmingham this year, our celebration is going to be so much better. It'll be huge. Everyone will be there, and we will all be getting the prizes together. It's at the wedding feast of the Lamb mentioned in Revelations. And again, you know, when you're struggling, picture that time. Visualize it. Visualize you being there. And who else will you see? And how wonderful that experience will be. Let's read now the words. By faith our fathers roamed the earth, with the power of his promise in their hearts, of a holy city built by God's own hand, a place where peace and justice reign. And then the chorus. We will stand. Now I've put run. We will run as children of the promise. We will fix on our eyes on him, our soul's reward, till the race is finished and the work is done. We'll run by faith and not by sight. Let's pray. Our great and loving Father, we've taken time today to study again Hebrews chapter 11 and also a little of Hebrews 12. Thank you for the encouragement, Father. We all need to be encouraged. We're physical beings and we have times of doubt and low strength, but you've encouraged us today and you've given us the mental pictures of our future, the promises that you have made, and we thank you so much for Jesus Christ. He's gone ahead and it's in him, it's a gift from him that we have salvation. We believe in him and we know that when we do, we have the faith that we will succeed in this race. We will cross the finishing line, and what a wonderful time that will be. Thank you for these encouraging words. Help us, Father, to live by them. And when we struggle, help us to get on our knees, to be focused, to be disciplined, and to go on. We just pray a blessing on all of us that are here today, and we just thank you, and we ask this all in your Son, Jesus Christ's name. Amen. Well, I hope you have a good week. I'd just like to remind you that there is the National Prayer Zoom this coming Wednesday, and it's an individual men and women's one. So if you'd like to join us, just go onto the website. And I hope you have a blessed week, and I look forward to being with you again.